Every day, 35-year-old Lian wakes up wrapped in pure luxury, high above Chicago in a sprawling penthouse where even the sunrise seems designed to suit his taste. But don't be fooled, he rarely stops to think about what's really driving his life. Surrounded by gold and marble, there's a veil that hides what he doesn't even realize is missing. It's easy to get comfortable when the sacrifices it took to get here feel like a distant dream. After all, who needs to question the truth when everything around them gleams, right? His friend Dakota would often tell him, "Man, you live like a king, but how many real people do you know?" This simple comment would make Lian laugh, but deep down, it left him a little uneasy. Opulence had its price, and even with all the details around him, there was a strange sense of family mystery in the silence surrounding him. There was a hidden emptiness disguised by abundance, and Lian never imagined that this unshakable comfort could be questioned so soon. His days started with luxurious showers that felt like waterfalls and ended with a breathtaking view of the city lights. Everything screamed success and status, but it also held a coldness that Lian wasn't ready to face. He had friends, of course, and parties to go to, but how many real moments were there? The truth is, people live in the present but hide in the now. He was about to discover that even success needs more than luxury to be fulfilling. With hours of leisure filled with luxuries and a packed business schedule, Lian went on without realizing what he was carrying inside. The lost family was the truth itself, something you miss without even knowing you once had it. It wasn't just about money, it wasn't just about prestige, it was about something that echoed in silence from a time he maybe didn't fully understand. In this game there is no truth without sacrifice. Maybe this was exactly what Dakota could see, the friend who kept calling him a man too busy for himself. Dakota could read between the lines. He knew that luxury was only a layer hiding what Lian needed to confront. And this friend was one of the few people Lian let close enough to stir up these doubts, one of the only ones who dared to challenge his certainties and question that quiet mystery that felt so familiar. Just how many people really could spark that kind of restlessness? Now, Lian was on the edge of a challenge that would make him step down from his polished pedestal and confront what lay buried beneath all that glamour. In a world where everything seemed safe, this touch of provocation could be the first step toward something much bigger. Something neither he nor Dakota could predict, but it was there, just waiting, like a storm brewing on the horizon. It all started as a joke. Dakota, Lian's longtime friend and business partner, decided to test the limits of Lian's luxurious life. Over a casual dinner, between laughs and banter, he proposed a challenge. Lian had to marry a woman for one day, a woman who didn't fit conventional beauty standards. It seemed simple, almost like a game, but Dakota knew it would shake Lian's certainties. It wasn't about the marriage itself, it was about uncovering the truth behind what we consider essential. At first, Lian just laughed it off, treating the challenge like another of Dakota's wild ideas. But his friend's insistence, with that knowing look, started to get under his skin. Dakota sensed there was something deeper under what seemed like a mere joke, something Lian couldn't see, trapped in his world of appearances. Without realizing it, Lian was about to confront a family mystery, a puzzle that couldn't be solved with status or fortune. When Dakota explained further, Lian felt a strange discomfort. A woman, simple, not fitting the standards, someone who hasn't escaped the sacrifices of life. Dakota emphasized each word, as if each one was a key to a hidden truth Lian couldn't grasp. Lian's initial reaction wasn't exactly positive. His life had always been about keeping up appearances, but Dakota was pushing him to dive deep, to face his own ideas about value and sacrifice. Was he up to it? Maybe Lian sensed that, beneath this unusual proposal, there was a call to something he feared facing. It was almost as if the idea touched something lost inside him, something he couldn't quite define. And in the silence of that night, he realized this challenge was real. Dakota looked at him with a smile that revealed he wouldn't take no for an answer because he knew more was at stake than just a one-day marriage. So Lian found himself trapped between curiosity and discomfort, realizing this small challenge had much larger implications. After all, how much sacrifice was he willing to make to discover a truth he never imagined existed? Accepting the challenge meant accepting that the lost familiar piece in his life might not be the luxury but simplicity. And deep down he knew this could change everything. Finally he accepted. With a firm handshake and a nervous smile, Lian agreed to live this marriage for a day. Little did he know that crossing this line was the first step toward something that would transform everything. This commitment was just the beginning of a journey he wasn't ready for but couldn't turn away from. The next day, Lian met Winona, a woman who defied every stereotype he was accustomed to. She was unlike anyone he'd ever known, with a deep connection to her indigenous heritage, a presence that carried both strength and quiet grace. Instantly, Lian felt an odd mix of curiosity and discomfort. Here was a woman who, in so many ways, felt like the complete opposite of everything his world represented. The truth of her identity, so evident in every gesture, began to awaken something in Lian, an unsettled feeling that perhaps there was more to life than he'd acknowledged. At first glance, Lian was perplexed by her appearance. She didn't wear the expensive, sleek attire he was used to seeing on women in his circle. Instead, she dressed in comfortable, earthy tones that reflected her spirit. She didn't hide behind fashion or try to blend into society's mold, and that bold authenticity struck him deeply. Lian realized that there was something liberating in her simplicity, a truth that stood proudly without need for validation. But still he wondered, why did this make him so uneasy? Winona's presence spoke volumes in silence, an aura of confidence that wasn't brash but grounded, as if she'd made peace with who she was long ago. As they exchanged their first words, Lian found himself drawn to her voice, calm yet resolute, carrying a wisdom that seemed beyond her years. She shared glimpses of her life, her family, the sacrifices her ancestors had made. It was a different kind of story, a family mystery hidden in the folds of tradition and resilience, something he couldn't fully understand but felt compelled to explore. The unease Lian felt slowly gave way to intrigue. Here was a woman who had endured her share of struggles, not unlike the sacrifices that had been made in his own family's journey, though worlds apart. Winona's truth was raw, unadorned, and unapologetic, challenging everything he thought he knew about strength. There was a sense of freedom in her gaze that beckoned him to look deeper, to question his own choices and values. Could it be that this unexpected encounter was meant to reveal a truth he hadn't known he was seeking? As they continued talking, Lian began to feel the layers of his own carefully constructed life start to shift. The familiar world of wealth and status suddenly felt foreign, insignificant next to the authenticity Winona brought with her. He found himself caught between admiration and discomfort, as if looking into a mirror that reflected a version of himself he'd never dared to imagine. What could he learn from someone so rooted in their own truth? Without realizing it, Lian was already changing. Winona was becoming more than just a face in this fleeting challenge. She was a catalyst, awakening the part of him that had been buried beneath his endless pursuit of success. He didn't know it yet, but this meeting was only the beginning of a transformation, a journey toward uncovering the kind of truth and mystery no amount of wealth could buy. Winona invited Lian to the Art Institute of Chicago, a place he'd rarely visited despite living in the city. As they entered, he immediately noticed how her face lit up. She was in her element. Lian, on the other hand, felt slightly out of place, surrounded by art that spoke of cultures and stories he knew little about. But as he watched Winona's genuine admiration for the pieces around her, something shifted. This wasn't just art to her, it was truth, history, a family mystery captured in colors and forms, revealing tales of sacrifice and resilience. They wandered through the exhibits, and Winona began sharing insights on Native American art, revealing details that Lian had never considered. She spoke about how each piece carried the stories of her ancestors, each brushstroke a testament to lives lived, battles fought, and identities preserved. Lian, captivated, realized that this was more than just a history lesson. It was an invitation to see the world through a lens he'd never known. In that moment he could feel the walls of his own perspective slowly beginning to crumble. At one point, they stopped in front of a large mural depicting a tribal gathering vibrant and alive with color and movement. Winona explained its significance, speaking of family ties that held through unimaginable hardship, a truth passed down through generations. Lian found himself drawn in, not just by her words but by the emotion she poured into them. He felt a twinge of envy. Here was a heritage so deeply rooted, so unbreakably connected to the past. For him, family was a concept overshadowed by wealth and status, lacking the grounding sense of belonging Winona seemed to possess. Lian realized that, in his world, sacrifice often meant long hours at the office, missing vacations, or giving up personal desires for career success. But here, standing beside Winona, he began to understand a different kind of sacrifice, one tied to identity, culture, and survival. It was humbling, even unsettling, to see a version of resilience so far removed from the polished image of success he'd always known. This was a truth built on blood and tears, not boardrooms and contracts. As they continued, Winona guided him to a quiet corner, where a modest, nearly forgotten sculpture stood. She explained its significance, a symbol of her people's enduring spirit despite centuries of struggle. Lian felt a pang of guilt, realizing he'd walked past such histories without a second thought countless times. But with Winona there, this piece, like the others, came alive. He felt as if he were uncovering a family mystery of his own, one that called him to question what he truly valued. By the time they left the museum, Lian knew he was seeing the world differently. Winona had given him a glimpse into a reality beyond wealth, one where truth and identity mattered more than any material possession. And for the first time he wondered if he could learn to embrace that kind of connection. As they stepped back into the bustling Chicago streets, he couldn't help but feel that he was standing on the edge of a new understanding, one that could change everything he thought he knew. They strolled through Millennium Park, surrounded by Chicago's bustling energy, yet everything felt calm, almost surreal. Lian, used to rushing through life, was surprised by the peacefulness of simply walking. Winona, with her steady presence, seemed to notice every detail, the trees swaying, the sound of distant laughter, even the smallest flowers blooming by the path. Her ability to find beauty in simplicity was foreign to him, almost unsettling. For the first time, he wondered if this simplicity held a deeper truth he'd overlooked his entire life. Winona shared stories of her childhood, memories filled with warmth and connection to nature, a sharp contrast to Lian's life of structured luxury. She spoke of days spent learning from her elders, the wisdom they passed down as they worked together, side by side. Lian realized that his own family gatherings rarely held that kind of closeness. His life had been about achievements, about meeting expectations rather than building memories. He felt a strange longing, as if something vital had been lost along the way, a familiar mystery that had always been there, just hidden beneath layers of ambition. As they walked, Lian started to open up, sharing glimpses of his own life, though cautiously at first. He talked about his relentless drive for success, the sacrifices he'd made for a life most people envied. But as he spoke, he felt the hollowness of his words, as if they were falling flat against the richness of Winona's experiences. Her life was filled with a quiet fulfillment, while his was defined by endless pursuits. It made him wonder if his version of success had come at the cost of something much deeper. They paused by the famous Cloud Gate, its reflective surface mirroring the city skyline and everyone around it. Winona touched its cool metal, commenting on how it represented connection. Everyone who looked at it saw themselves alongside others. For Lian, it felt symbolic, a reminder of the interconnectedness he'd missed in his own life. In that moment, he understood that wealth alone could never bring that feeling of unity, that sense of belonging Winona spoke of so naturally. Winona's laughter brought him back to the present. She teased him gently about his serious demeanor, reminding him that life was meant to be enjoyed, not just endured. Lian couldn't help but smile, feeling lighter than he had in years. The park, the laughter, and even the passing strangers all seemed to remind him of something he'd forgotten. Life's beauty lies in its simple, unguarded moments. It was a truth he hadn't understood, hidden beneath layers of duty and pride. By the end of their stroll, Lian was beginning to understand the quiet strength in Winona's simplicity. Her world, so different from his, carried a peace he longed for but had never known how to reach. He felt that, somehow, this walk was leading him somewhere beyond the park, to a place where the sacrifices he'd made no longer felt empty. And he wasn't ready to leave that feeling behind just yet. As the day unfolded, their conversations grew deeper, reaching places Lian hadn't explored in years. Winona spoke with an honesty and clarity that disarmed him, sharing stories of her family's past, their struggles, and the sacrifices her ancestors made to preserve their heritage. Lian listened, captivated by the depth of her words, feeling an unexpected connection to this woman who saw the world so differently. Her stories held a truth he couldn't ignore, a reminder that every family, every person, carries a history worth honoring, a mystery worth uncovering. Winona shared how her community valued every person's role, no matter how small, and how each sacrifice contributed to something greater. Lian, used to a world where status defined worth, found this perspective both humbling and enlightening. He realized that in his own life he'd measured success by achievements and material gains, yet here was Winona, finding worth in something as simple as human connection. It made him question his own values, wondering if he'd traded something priceless for a life of constant ambition. Lian began to share pieces of his own story, moments he'd buried under the weight of his career, choices he'd made that still haunted him. He spoke of his father, a man who valued sacrifice yet rarely spoke of love, and his mother, who gave up her dreams to build the life he now enjoyed. Winona listened with an openness that felt healing, her quiet understanding a balm to his hidden regrets. In that exchange he felt a release, a small but powerful shift, as if he were peeling back layers he hadn't even known were there. The conversation drifted to their beliefs, their hopes, and the mysteries that life still held. Winona's faith in her culture and her people resonated with a part of Lian he'd forgotten, a sense of belonging, of identity tied to something greater. He realized he'd spent so long chasing external success that he'd lost sight of his own roots, his own truth. There was a beauty in Winona's groundedness that stirred a longing within him, a desire to find that same peace within himself. Lian noticed that, with Winona, silence wasn't uncomfortable. They could sit in quiet moments without feeling the need to fill the space with words, a rare comfort in his otherwise busy life. It was in those pauses that he found himself reflecting on what truly mattered, recognizing the gaps in his life that no amount of wealth could fill. In Winona's presence he was learning that truth didn't require perfection. It simply asked for honesty and courage, two things he'd neglected. By the time evening settled, Lian felt like he'd glimpsed a new way of being. Winona had opened a door he never knew existed, one that led to a truth deeper than any accomplishment or title could offer. He felt lighter, unburdened, as if each word had unlocked something within him, leaving him changed. And though he couldn't explain it, he knew this was just the beginning of a journey he couldn't turn away from. As the challenge came to an end, Lian couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had shifted within him. What had begun as a light-hearted bet now felt like the most meaningful experience of his life. Winona's presence, her wisdom, and the truth she carried had unearthed parts of him he'd long forgotten. It was as if she'd left an imprint on his heart, a lasting reminder of the value of authenticity and the power of embracing one's roots. He realized he'd gained something far greater than he could have ever imagined. Reflecting on their time together, Lian saw how much he had changed, how his outlook had softened and deepened. The things that once seemed important, the status, the wealth, the endless pursuit of recognition, now felt hollow compared to the richness he'd glimpsed in Winona's world. Her life was built on simplicity, sacrifice, and a connection to truth he couldn't ignore. For the first time he understood that a life of substance didn't require material abundance. It required a dedication to something real, something true. Lian remembered the peaceful moments they'd shared, their walk in the park, the quiet understanding between them, the stories that had touched his soul. He realized that those simple acts of connection had brought him a joy he hadn't experienced in years. They were moments he hadn't just lived but felt deeply, each one a revelation of what he'd been missing. It was humbling to think that the woman he'd once seen as different had shown him a truth that felt like home. The more he pondered, the more he saw how Winona's influence had changed him. He wanted to carry that simplicity, that authenticity into his own life, to honor the part of himself he'd buried beneath ambition. It was as if she'd awakened a part of his soul he hadn't known existed, a part that yearned for realness over recognition. There was a family mystery within him, a legacy he was only beginning to understand, one that required more than wealth to be whole. As they said their goodbyes, Lian felt a pang of loss, yet also a sense of gratitude. Winona had been more than just a fleeting encounter. She was a mirror, a teacher, someone who'd reminded him of his own humanity. He knew that what he'd learned from her would stay with him, shaping the man he wanted to become. The truth she'd shared was now his to carry forward, a reminder that real success is found in the heart, not in the bank account. With a final smile and a newfound clarity, Lian walked away feeling lighter and more grounded. The city lights around him seemed brighter, the air fresher, as if he were seeing the world for the first time. This journey had begun as a simple challenge, but it had led him to a new understanding, a path he was now eager to explore. And though he didn't know what lay ahead, he was ready to embrace whatever came next, guided by a truth he could no longer deny. Now that you've seen Lian's journey of transformation, the question is, what would you do if you had the chance to rethink what truly matters in your life? Is the path you've chosen aligned with your deepest truths, or are you just following what others expect of you? Too often we get caught up in what seems like success, forgetting that real sacrifices aren't made just to gain status. They're made to find meaning. Reflect on the stories and connections that truly shape who you are. Ask yourself, what am I sacrificing, and in the end will it lead to a life that's truly worth it? Comment below on how this message inspired you and share the mantra, I seek truth and purpose, to attract more clarity and determination on your journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about topics that can transform your worldview. We're on this journey to something greater together.